Most people believe wealth belongs to the intelligent, to the gifted, to the chosen few who graduate from elite schools and speak in clever tones. But the truth is more unsettling. Wealth does not belong to the brilliant, it belongs to the strategically aware. Niccolo Machiavelli, the infamous Florentine thinker, warned us centuries ago. Fortune does not reward the virtuous, the talented, or the noble. Fortune rewards the bold, those who move with ruthless purpose while others hesitate. I didn't understand this until I found myself in a room of high earners, men who controlled businesses, investments, and networks. Some were eloquent, others charismatic, but not all. One man in particular shattered my illusions. He stumbled through a presentation, awkward, clumsy, barely able to hold a thought together. His grammar was broken, his delivery forgettable. And yet, without bragging, he mentioned he was struggling to push past 400,000 a month. In that instant, the myth of wealth collapsed before my eyes. Intelligence was not the currency there. Strategy was. We have been raised to think that intellect guarantees riches, that sharpness of mind automatically leads to financial security and dominance. But this is a comforting lie. Intelligence often paralyzes. The clever see every possible angle of risk. They drown in analysis, convincing themselves of 1,000 ways something might fail. They become scholars of what could go wrong, while the world belongs to those who dare. The Machiavellian mind thinks differently. He asks one cold question: if I fail, will it destroy me? If the answer is no, he acts, not blindly but deliberately. Strategy is not about knowing everything. It is about moving despite uncertainty. History remembers kings, founders, and generals, not timid academics. The truth is that intelligence without strategy is impotence. It hesitates, it doubts, it calculates endlessly, but never strikes. Machiavelli understood that fortune is like a storm. You cannot predict it perfectly, but you can build sails to harness it, or walls to deflect it. The man who waits for perfect weather never leaves port. The man who dares, despite the storm, arrives first. The modern world has chained us with an even crueler illusion: education. Schools teach analysis, memorization, credentialism, but they rarely teach decisive action. We are trained to be risk-averse employees, not strategic operators. The university tells you to study every angle. The real world punishes hesitation. This is why the most decorated student often ends up working for the dropout. The dropout understood motion. The student mastered hesitation. Machiavelli would smirk at our modern obsession with diplomas. He knew that power is not granted by certificates. It is seized through force, cunning, and endurance. The world admires intelligence, but wealth belongs to the emotionally durable. These are the people who endure humiliation without breaking, the ones who can stomach ridicule, rejection, and years of obscurity without collapsing into despair. When I first tried to make money, I could barely write a coherent sentence. I had no polish, no pedigree. What I had was the ability to suffer boredom, embarrassment, and failure longer than others. That was my advantage, and it remains the advantage of the so-called less intelligent. They act without overthinking. They stumble, fall, and get back up without philosophizing about it. They stay in the game long after the clever have disqualified themselves with self-doubt. Machiavelli wrote that appearances matter more than reality. Emotional durability is about appearing unbreakable, even when you're cracking inside, because if the world believes you are immovable, eventually you are. Here is a truth most cannot bear. Wealth does not arrive steadily. It arrives violently, after long seasons of silence. The man who cannot survive the silence never experiences the eruption. In my own career, I hemorrhaged money for years. I thought collapse was inevitable. Friends doubted, family whispered, creditors circled. And then, suddenly, everything changed. Revenue exploded. Compounding snapped into place. Years of fruitless effort converged in an instant. This is how fortune behaves. She tests who can withstand her neglect. She rewards those who endure her indifference without giving up. Machiavelli knew this. He warned that rulers win not because they are loved, but because they endure longer than rivals. Time is the ultimate weapon. Those who master time master outcomes. Most men squander patience, seeking early applause, but applause is poison. The true competitor operates in obscurity, accumulating silent leverage until his rivals disqualify themselves with impatience. Discipline is its own elimination tool. The modern fantasy is passive income. Make money while you sleep. Escape the grind. Retire early. It is a siren song, and it lures countless dreamers onto the rocks. I once bought property, imagining rent checks would roll in, effortlessly. Instead, I lost $20,000, countless hours, and years of sanity. Passive income is not passive. It is the reward for active competence. Every investment requires skill, evaluating risk, negotiating terms, managing outcomes. There is no shortcut. You cannot leap into the second game of multiplying money until you master the first game of making money. Before wealth works for you, you must prove you can work for it. Wealth follows value, not effort. Another brutal truth: the world does not pay you for effort. You can grind day and night, yet remain broke if what you produce is replaceable. The janitor works harder than the banker, yet the banker captures leverage. Wealth flows toward irreplaceability. I learned this as a trainer. I hustled endlessly for clients, while others attracted them effortlessly. The difference was not effort, it was value. Once I shifted focus to undeniable results, everything changed. Transformations so visible they couldn't be ignored. Competitions entered, records broken, proof undeniable. Suddenly, clients orbited me, not because I marketed louder, but because I had become the solution. Machiavelli taught that reputation is more powerful than armies. In wealth, reputation is gravity. Excellence pulls resources toward you, and here lies a Machiavellian truth. It is not the best product that wins, but the one that eliminates competitors most ruthlessly. Fortune does not favor the gentle, it favors the one who renders rivals irrelevant. Humility before power, but never forget where ascent begins, in humiliation. Most men refuse to start at the bottom because pride chokes them. They want high status immediately, and so they never begin. I remember guiding unfit tourists up trails after college. Some mocked the work, some pitied it, but I smiled, because I knew this was not permanent, it was strategic. Humility is camouflage. It lets you endure obscurity until power accumulates. The man who fears low-status labor will remain poor forever. Machiavelli warned, it is safer to be feared than loved, but the man who fears embarrassment will never be feared. The poison of envy. Another trap is envy. I once abandoned a lucrative deal because a partner whispered, "He will make $500 million while we do the work." I listened. I withdrew. That company skyrocketed without me. I had judged emotionally, not strategically. Machiavelli knew men judge more by appearances than by reality. I let appearances deceive me. The wealthy understand abundance is not zero-sum. Someone else's fortune does not diminish yours. The king counts territory, not coins. The peasant counts other people's pockets. Envy is a tax on your attention. Focus is the real currency. Action over mindset. The modern world sells mindset. Think positive, visualize, manifest. But belief without action is impotence. I once read every wealth book, repeated affirmations, gave away groceries to attract abundance. Nothing changed. Then, a mentor told me, money doesn't discriminate. It flows to the one who works. That was the sword across my illusions. From then on, I stopped trying to think rich and started acting rich. Machiavelli would laugh at mindset culture. Power is never given, it is seized. Action births evidence, evidence births belief, and belief sustains motion. But it all begins with action. When you strip it bare, wealth is not noble. It is not fair. It is not a reflection of goodness, or talent, or intellect. Wealth is a consequence of strategy, of leverage, of solving pain points with ruthless competence. The world will never pay you for good intentions. It will only pay when it is forced to, by value so undeniable it cannot be ignored. The man who survives obscurity, who resists envy, who strikes boldly while others calculate endlessly, this man bends fortune to his will. So do not ask if you are intelligent enough. Ask if you are relentless enough, because fortune does not serve the clever. She serves the bold. The world pays not for effort, not for intentions, but for pain removed, for dominance seized, for outcomes delivered. Intelligence hesitates, strategy strikes, and fortune obeys the ruthless.